There's a sound a bank app makes when a transfer goes through. Just a soft little chime. Nothing dramatic, no siren, no warning. Just a polite sound telling you that your money is gone. I heard that sound 3 times in 1 week. The first transfer was $12,000. The second was $16,000. The last one was $10,000, $38,000. That was nearly everything I had left after my divorce, the sale of my house, and 36 years of working for the same utility company outside Columbus, Ohio. And I sent it willingly. That is the part I had the hardest time admitting. Nobody held a gun to my head. Nobody hacked my account. Nobody stole my password. I sat at a kitchen table in Tagaytay, looked at a woman I believed loved me, and pressed the button myself. My name is Robert Hale. I am 70 years old. I grew up in Dayton, spent most of my adult life near Columbus, and retired as a maintenance supervisor for an electric company. I was the man people called when a problem had to be solved calmly. Storm damage, broken equipment, a crew arguing at 2 in the morning, I was the steady one. At least that is who I thought I was. By the time I came to the Philippines, I had already lost more than I wanted to tell anybody. My marriage ended after 41 years. There was no scandal, no affair, no screaming match with dishes breaking against the wall. My wife and I simply became 2 tired people living in the same house, speaking mostly about groceries, prescriptions, and whether the furnace filter had been changed. When we finally divorced, the silence afterward was worse than the arguing would have been. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment above a dentist's office. Every morning at 8:30, I heard the suction machine start. Every evening, I ate something microwaved while watching television too loudly. My daughter, Melissa, asked me to come live near her in North Carolina, but I could hear what she was really saying. "Dad, we are worried about you. Dad, we need to know where to put you. Dad, please make this easier for us." She never said those words. She did not have to. I know she meant well. I know that now. But at the time, all I could hear was that my life had become a problem other people were trying to manage. Then my pension was adjusted after a dispute over benefits. Not eliminated, but reduced enough that every month started feeling tighter. Rent went up, my supplemental insurance went up, groceries went up. I began checking prices in the store the way my mother used to during the hard years, holding 2 cans and calculating the difference down to the penny. I tried everything before I considered leaving the country. I moved to a cheaper apartment. I sold my truck and bought an old sedan. I canceled cable. I stopped eating out. I called 3 different insurance agents. I looked at senior communities in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina. The numbers never worked. $2,400 a month for one place, $3,100 for another. And those were the basic options before any extra care. I remember sitting in the parking lot of a retirement community outside Raleigh after a tour. The building smelled like lemon cleaner and boiled vegetables. There was a television mounted high in the corner and 6 people were sitting under it, none of them watching. A woman in a pink sweater kept asking an employee what day it was. I sat in my car afterward for almost an hour. I was 68 years old and I felt like I had just been shown the waiting room for the end of my life. That night I could not sleep. I opened YouTube and typed in something foolishly broad like cheap places to retire. One video led to another: Mexico, Portugal, Panama, then the Philippines. At first I thought it had to be exaggerated. A furnished apartment for $400, fresh fruit for less than a fast food meal, private medical clinics where you could see a doctor without waiting 3 months, people my age talking about morning walks, neighbors who knew their names, and enough room in the budget to breathe. I know, famous last words, but I did not book a ticket the next morning. I spent almost 9 months researching. I joined Facebook groups. I read expat forums. I watched videos from people who had been there 10 years and videos from people who left after 10 weeks. I made spreadsheets comparing rent, food, transportation, insurance, and emergency funds. I spoke to regular people, not rich people, not influencers standing beside infinity pools, men living on pensions close to mine. The more I learned, the more possible it seemed. I chose Tagaytay because I did not want the heat of Manila, and I did not want to live in the middle of a tourist district. I liked the cooler air, the view of Tal in the distance, the roadside fruit stands, and the way the fog could roll over the ridges in the early morning. My first apartment cost 26,000 pesos a month, about $460 at the time. It had one bedroom, a small balcony, a rattling air conditioner, and a kitchen sink that leaked if you turned the tap too far. The building sat on a side road where tricycles passed from sunrise until late evening. The first morning, I stepped onto the balcony with instant coffee and heard roosters, motorcycles, a dog barking, and somebody sweeping concrete with a stiff broom. It was noisy, it was unfamiliar, it was alive. For the first time in years, I did not feel like I was waiting for something to end. I met Liza 3 months later. She was 52, or that was the age she gave me. She worked at a small pharmacy near the public market. She had a round face, dark hair usually tied back, and a laugh that came fast and loud, like she was surprised by her own happiness. The first time we spoke, I was trying to buy something for an upset stomach. I used the wrong word, pointed to the wrong shelf, and somehow ended up holding a packet of skin cream. She laughed, then apologized, then helped me find what I needed. A week later, she remembered my name. That mattered more than it should have. When you have been invisible for a long time, being remembered can feel like love. We started having coffee after her shift, then dinner. She introduced me to dishes I would never have ordered on my own. Bulalo on a cool evening, crispy tuwilas with rice, sweet mangoes sliced at the table. She teased me for carrying a small towel everywhere because I still sweated more than the locals, even in Tagaytay. She made me feel interesting again, not useful, not manageable, interesting. She asked about my work, my childhood, my old house, the places I wanted to see. When I talked, she looked at me instead of looking through me. She remembered small details, the name of my first dog, the fact that my father never said he was proud of me, the song my wife and I had danced to at our wedding. I told myself I was being careful. I did not lend her money in the beginning. I did not put her name on anything. I did not move her into my apartment. I had read all the warnings online. Do not become the walking wallet. Do not confuse attention with devotion. Do not rescue everybody. I repeated those rules like commandments. Then life stopped looking like a warning story and started looking personal. Liza's brother was injured in a motorcycle accident. I went with her to the hospital. I saw him in a bed with bandages around his leg. I saw her mother crying. I paid part of the bill, about $600. That felt different because the emergency was real. A few months later, she told me she had inherited a small piece of land outside Amadeo. The family wanted to build 3 rental units, nothing luxurious, simple rooms for local workers and students. She showed me photographs, documents, sketches, and a budget written in a notebook. She said she did not want a gift, she wanted a partner. That word hooked me. Partner, not sponsor, not foreigner, not old man, partner. The plan was simple. I would put in capital for construction. The rental income would pay me back over 3 years. Then we would split the profit. She said the land itself was security. She said her cousin was a contractor. She said materials had to be purchased quickly because cement and steel prices were rising. Every part of the story came with something I could see. Receipts, photos, names, a location pin, a man wearing a hard hat who shook my hand and called me sir. I visited the property twice. There were hollow blocks stacked near a fence. There was a dugout section where they said the foundation would go. I took pictures and sent them to Melissa. She called me immediately. Dad, please do not put money into this. I told her she did not understand how business worked there. She asked whether I had a lawyer. I said the documents were being prepared. She asked whether I owned any part of the land. I said that was complicated for foreigners. Then she said something that made me angry because it was too close to the truth. She said, Dad, are you investing in a building or are you investing in the feeling this woman gives you? I hung up on my daughter. I am ashamed of that now. At the time, I told myself she was judging Liza. I told myself people back home could not accept that I had built a new life. I told myself Melissa wanted me dependent because that made her feel safe. The truth was simpler. She was scared for me. The first transfer was $12,000 for materials. I watched a truck unload cement bags and steel bars. I saw workers measuring the ground. Liza sent me updates every day, photos at sunrise, photos at lunch, short videos of men mixing concrete. Then heavy rain delayed the work. Then the contractor needed more money because the price estimate had changed. Then there was a permit issue. The second transfer was $16,000. That was the one that should have stopped me. My bank called to verify it. The employee asked what the money was for. I felt offended, like they were questioning my competence. I said it was for a property development investment. The words sounded official when I said them out loud. The final $10,000 was supposed to complete the roof and plumbing. After that transfer, the updates slowed down. Liza said her phone was broken. Then she said her mother was sick. Then she said the contractor had disappeared with part of the funds. She cried in my apartment and told me she had been betrayed too. I believed her because believing her hurt less than admitting the alternative. One Tuesday morning, I drove to the land without telling her. The hollow blocks were still there, but the workers were gone. The foundation had not changed since my last visit. A neighbor was standing outside, washing plastic chairs with a hose. I showed him a picture of Liza. He knew her, but not the way I knew her. He said the land belonged to an aunt. There had been talk of building rooms, but no real project. The workers had been there only a few days. The materials were mostly borrowed for photographs. I felt the air leave my body, not like in the movies. I did not shout. I did not fall to my knees. I just stood there listening to water strike the plastic chairs. Tap, tap, tap. The neighbor kept talking, but his words became distant. I drove back to Tagaytay with both hands locked around the steering wheel. The road curved through wet trees and roadside shops. Jeepneys passed. A boy carried a sack of pineapples. People were living ordinary lives while mine had split open. Liza was gone from the pharmacy. Her number stopped working that afternoon. The address she had given me for her mother was real, but the family there said no one by that name lived there. The brother from the hospital was not her brother. I later learned he was the cousin of a friend. The accident was real. My place in the story was not. The contractor was not a contractor. The documents were altered copies of unrelated papers. The signatures meant nothing. $38,000. Gone. I reported it. I spoke to local authorities. I hired a lawyer for a while. I collected messages, receipts, photos, names, and account details. I learned that money can move through several hands faster than any investigation can follow. I recovered less than $2,000. The money hurt, but the humiliation was worse. I stopped going to the market because I thought everybody knew. I stopped attending the Sunday breakfast where a few expats met. I ignored Melissa's calls for 11 days. I could not bear to hear kindness in her voice. Anger I could have handled. I deserved anger. But kindness would have forced me to admit how badly I had wanted to be loved. When I finally answered, my daughter did not say, "I told you so." She said, "Dad, are you safe?" That broke me. I cried harder on that phone call than I had during my divorce. Not because of Liza, not even because of the money. I cried because I had mistaken concern for control and manipulation for affection. Those two mistakes had cost me more than $38,000. For a while, I planned to leave the Philippines. I packed one suitcase. I looked at flights. I told myself the whole country had fooled me, which was unfair and lazy, but pain likes simple explanations. Then my landlord, a quiet man named Ernesto, knocked on my door. He had noticed I had not been outside. He brought a container of arroz caldo from his wife and sat on the balcony without asking many questions. Eventually, I told him what happened. He did not defend anyone. He did not blame me. He just nodded and said, "Bad people know which hunger to feed." I have thought about that sentence ever since. Bad people know which hunger to feed. Mine was not greed. I did not believe I was going to become rich. Mine was the hunger to matter to someone, the hunger to be chosen, the hunger to prove that 70 did not mean finished. That is what she fed. I stayed. Not because everything was suddenly fine, but because one person had betrayed me and many others had not. My landlord had not. The woman who cleaned the hallway had not. The clinic doctor who checked my blood pressure had not. The men at Sunday breakfast had not. My daughter had not. I moved to a smaller apartment that cost 21,000 pesos a month, around $370. I rebuilt my emergency fund slowly. I began tracking every expense again. I found a local attorney who explained in plain language what foreigners can and cannot safely own or invest in. I also made rules. I do not invest in property I cannot legally control. I do not transfer money under emotional pressure. I do not accept urgency as proof. I do not confuse access to someone's family with access to the truth. And I never make a major financial decision without sending the full details to my daughter and waiting 48 hours. 48 hours, that rule alone would have saved me $38,000. I'm not telling this story because I think every relationship between a foreign retiree and a Filipina is a scam. That would be false and insulting. I know good couples here, loyal couples, couples who have built honest lives together over decades. I'm telling it because loneliness can make an intelligent person negotiate against himself. You start by ignoring one small inconsistency because you do not want to seem suspicious. Then you excuse a larger one because you do not want to seem unkind. Then you defend the person to your family because admitting doubt feels like admitting weakness. By the time the truth arrives, you have helped build the trap around yourself. Here is what I learned. Trust should grow slower than affection. Documents need independent verification, not reassurance from the person who benefits. Real love can survive questions. A legitimate opportunity can survive 48 hours. And anybody who makes you feel guilty for protecting your retirement is not protecting your future. I still walk through the market where I met Liza. The pharmacy has a different sign now. Sometimes I pass the shelf where I picked up the wrong medicine that first day. For a long time, that place made my stomach tighten. Now it reminds me of something else. I survived my own mistake. That matters. I did not become homeless. I did not have to move in with my daughter. I did not lose my entire pension. I was embarrassed, wounded, and poor, but I was still here. There is dignity in admitting that you were fooled. More dignity than pretending you were not. Last month, I sat on my balcony during a light rain. The concrete was dark with water. A tricycle rattled past. Somewhere nearby, someone was frying garlic, and the smell drifted up through the damp air. My phone was on the table beside me. A bank notification appeared because my pension deposit had arrived. For a second, I remembered those 3 transfers. That soft chime. $12,000, $16,000, $10,000, $38,000. Then I opened my budgeting sheet, moved a small amount into savings, and closed the app. No panic, no shame, no fantasy, just a man protecting what he has left. I used to think wisdom meant being too smart to get fooled. It does not. Wisdom is what you build after the fooling, if you are honest enough to look at every part of how it happened. I trusted the wrong woman. I lost $38,000. But I learned to trust myself again, slowly, with rules, with patience, and with the people who were willing to tell me the truth, even when I did not want to hear it. That lesson cost more than I ever wanted to pay. I intend to keep it.